came to India with a massive advantage, and they took full advantage of that position.
They've not chased, for example, Maruti saying, let's go into, hatchbacks and small sedans, which they have internationally, but they've steered clear of that and then gone into like almost what would have been called a niche segment, MPV.
I think that's another thing about Hyundai and Kia, what people need to understand. Though they are sister companies, they fight like cats and dogs.
Kia are saying that they expect this year to achieve a 20% segment share, and for them, the segment is every SUV below the 4-meter mark.
From what I understand, the new Seltos is going to be much bigger. It's going to be a size, 4.3, might even be 4.5 meters long, maybe even longer. So getting closer to Hector. Hello, it's Saturday morning and time for your weekly dose of Deep Drive, our podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. And on this episode, we are going to be talking about a company that entered India in copybook style. It didn't put a foot wrong. It launched its products in the perfect possible way. It's gone on to becoming the 6th largest auto company in India. But over the last few years, growth has flattened. It hasn't really gone or grown any further. That company is Kia Motor India. And we're going to be talking about how this Korean brand has evolved in this market. I'm Hormazd Sorabjee.
And I'm Sergius Barretto. And what we also have for you is the new product plans that Kia has to grow further, like you said, almost from the kind of flat line that they've been at.
Absolutely. Let's give a few scoops in Deep Drive. I think that's what people look forward to, but you'll have to wait for that.
Absolutely. So, Hormazd, you said it rightly. In fact, I have the data here, post-COVID. Obviously, they leaped forward 45K only. They sold in 2019, 1.4 lakh units, total sale 2020, 1.8 lakh in 21. And then 22, 23, 24, it's all been around the 2.5 lakh mark, 2.5, 2.55. So they've kind of, like you said, plateaued, and
despite some newer models coming in.
Despite some newer models. And market shares also actually dropped slightly last year, 2024, by about 1%. They're still the 6th largest, yes. Do you think that's, been a reflection of, let's say, maybe there's a production constraint, or are they not addressing enough segments? Because you have to remember, they are actually only with 2 large volumes like the Seltos and Sonnet.
No, they've got Carens now.
Now we have the Carens.
They've had Carens for a while.
For a while actually.
That's
the Syros now.
Yeah. So I think let's dial back to see how their launch was. I think, as I said, perfect launch. I mean, the Seltos, when it came, I think it just blew everyone away.
Yes.
It was the car. It was our car of the year, the Kia Seltos, and with good reason. I think it came at the right time because its main arch rival, the Creta, was a generation older at that time. So this really was a leap forward from what the Creta was, which was a top dog in that segment. I think the other big launch was the MG Hector around the same time. But I think as products went, the Seltos was definitely superior to the Hector. Hector won on size and things like that. So I think copybook launch, I think they had the advantage of, looking at what its sibling and rival Hyundai did in the market. In fact, a lot of the top management, Yong Kim, in fact, used to be ex-Hyundai. So he was in charge of Kia at that time. So he knew exactly what to do. Of course, then you have the advantage of the supplier base already well developed. So as far as engines went, transmissions went, gearboxes went, it was already there, for them. Unlike other brands which really didn't have this advantage. Even MG, for example, didn't have this advantage. It all had to be built from scratch. So I think that's where Kia came to India with a massive advantage. And they, took full advantage of that position. So I think Seltos really was a runaway success. I think it gave the Creta a hard time, a fight, but then Creta next generation and the next generation and the facelift, they just ran ahead over there. And Seltos has kind of stagnated. If you look at it, Seltos sales are nowhere near what Creta is. I think it's one third of what the Creta is.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the figures right here. So last year, for example, the Seltos sold about 75,000 units.
The Creta would be 190.
just under 2 lakh. Right?
Yeah,
So
that's a lot.
it's a huge, and for what is technically the same car. I mean, technically speaking.
That's right. So, I mean, if you look at it, conceptually the same car, I would say.
Exactly.
So I think that's another thing about Hyundai and Kia, what people need to understand. Though they are sister companies, they fight like cats and dogs. Kia doesn't get any real benefit that way in terms of whether it's, dealer network, common dealers. In fact, it's quite the opposite. I think when Kia was appointing dealers, they appointed certain Hyundai dealers. And I think Hyundai told the Kia, those dealers, if you take the Kia dealership, we're cancelling the Hyundai dealership. So really, it's that bitter, the rivalry on the ground level. I think that's the way the group wants it, fight on the ground, but enjoy synergies in terms of
the
technology and componentry and things like that. But again, coming back to Kia and how it's evolved, what we need to see. So you had the Seltos, then you had the Sonet, again a very good car. And if you see, Kia typically has always been the underdog. It's tried to punch above its weight. They have that slight edge on premiumness, material quality.
They do.
And I think one mandate they have is they don't want to be seen as a cheaper brand than Hyundai is. So I think that's the kind of position they've tried to cling on to. They've had their challenges being part of the same group. I mean, for example, I think one of the reasons why the Seltos also, hasn't done great numbers later on is because at that time, still, diesel was, let's say, 65%.
Over halfway.
Yeah, over halfway for the Seltos category. And Hyundai makes the diesels. So the supply of diesels to Kia has to come from Hyundai, and clearly over there, Hyundai, they may not be giving everything what Kia wants. So they do play these little game, not games amongst themselves, but this sort of rivalry does go on. I think the other thing which Hyundai did, which I think impacted Kia in a way, and this is one of the reasons why sometimes sales are flattened, is that they dumped all the IMT transmissions to Kia. Now, IMT, frankly, has been a failure. While people think it's new, it was just that halfway house between a manual and an automatic, and customers really didn't take to it, and really I think Kia in fact stopped the manuals and gave only IMTs, and in tier 2 and tier 3 cities this really had a huge impact. So I think that again is something that kind of dented Kia in some sense. You have these kind of things. So
especially not when you're trying to be, like you said, a premium kind of player. An IMT is not a premium experience.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, it's like you said, a halfway house. Ideally, it should have been like maybe a CVT, if not a torque converter or something like that. But yeah, you're right. I mean, currently, Hormazd, it's only the Sonet and the Seltos that use the IMT.
That's right.
Among all of the cars that they had it earlier, and only on the turbo petrol, which is a shame actually, because you'd enjoy that with a manual.
Yeah, correct. So I think they messed up the whole IMT strategy and mix, and I think clearly, Hyundai has washed its hands off IMT. Right. They don't have it, and they've given it all to Kia right now. So really, I think that's bigger brother, kind of asserting itself,
getting rid of some kits maybe.
That's right. So I think Kia in that sense, it's admirable what they've done. I mean, if you see it as a brand, they've done well. But, as you said, you've seen the sales figures. They've kind of been now at the last 3 years at this 20,000 units a month and not grown. Multiple reasons for that. I think one is, of course, the capacity has been capped. They haven't really increased the capacity and gone, to that extent. Obviously, Anandpur is where they make the single plant right now. There have been rumors of them looking at other locations for an extra plant. But I think, Kia is a company which I think also is a little bit more financially conservative, because don't forget, this is a company that went bankrupt, belly up in the 90s during the Asian financial crisis, and Hyundai salvaged it. So it's kind of scarred from that experience. So it's not as cavalier, let's say, as Hyundai is in kind of, investment, or as bold or gutsy as Hyundai is in putting money down to really, unless Kia is sure of their product lineup, I don't think they will do that. But I think now going forward, they do have a good product line. And I think, looking at beyond the Seltos and Sonet, which has been, let's say, the main two products which go head on against the Venue and the Creta, I think they've found their own niche. Again, another mandate is that don't go one-to-one against Hyundai. quite the opposite of what Volkswagen and Skoda do. Volkswagen and Skoda, identical cars practically except cosmetic changes. Mechanically absolutely identical, same powertrains, everything. Even these are mechanically similar, but there are a lot of distinction.
No, and I think what you said, absolutely, almost, if you look at badge engineering, let's say, the base level would be, let's say, what Maruti and Toyota do with a Baleno, literally like a badge swap. I think Skoda, Volkswagen are sort of in between where they'll change maybe headlight, bumper, grille, but you'll still find doors and roofs and glasses the same. But not so with these guys.
It's not badge engineering. They're using just a common platform, and then everything is
different.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's dashboards, things like that, which are expensive. They have something different.
For all practical purposes, they are two different cars. So that's how it is. But I think what's interesting is they've gotten into niches where Hyundai is not there, and I think the Carens is one example. I think a pretty successful car. I think what they've done with that has been quite admirable, and I think when they launch it at an incredible price. In fact, I remember talking to the MD back then who said, he launched it at this price just to get market share. They were definitely losing money at that, but they really wanted to prove a point. And don't forget, in that segment, you're up against, champions like the Ertiga, which even though it's not as good as, let's say, a Carens is, in the MPV segment, brand loyalty is so strong that, you have to go beyond the product, the tech, the features to kind of win over the customer.
And even the XL6, which is the more premium version of
I meant the XL6. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So exactly. So I think it's carved a niche over there. Again, a good range of engines. I think some, products like which Hyundai didn't do, like the Sonnet with the 1.5 diesel to the 6 auto, probably the best compact SUV, even from a driving point of view. Refinement better than the petrols, though it's a diesel. It drove much better because that automatic is better than the DCTs. Yeah. It was super. But now that's become really expensive. I think with the facelift, Kia's increased the price dramatically, so they've lost market share over there. And I think, I think, now is a bit of an inflection point with the Syros, where I think they should raise their game and they should be selling much more, because I think we both driven the Syros. Yeah. Super impressive product. Okay, the looks can be polarizing, and talking to some dealers, they said it's had a bit of a slow start because people, a little, let's say, it's not love at first sight.
Correct.
So it's taken a bit of time for them to digest the looks. But once they've experienced it, families are just loving it. And I think, we're going to be seeing a steady increase in Syros sale as it gains more and more acceptance, and people start seeing it on the roads, and people just accept it more and more.
No, absolutely. In fact, Kia are saying that they expect this year to achieve a 20% segment share, and for them the segment is every SUV below the 4-meter mark. It's not just only the, say, Punch or the they're saying their own, of course, Sonnet, but they expect that much more from the Syros. And this year they're targeting a 3 lakh total sales. So finally, after 3 years of hovering around the 2.5 lakh mark, they're saying they want to target a 3 lakh thing. So it is I guess, good.
Yeah, well, we will have to see, because I think what they did before putting in the product is that they almost doubled their dealer network, their dealer strength. Now, a lot of dealers weren't happy with that because discounting has started, the market share amongst dealers got fragmented. But now if they've got product, they've got more product, now they've got the dealer strength as well.
They have the network.
So they have the network, and I think clearly, they are well placed to kind of see this kind of growth. And though I have to say, I think Sonnet has been impacted with Syros, so it's a bit of cannibalization there for sure. But yeah, I think, Syros is such a unique product. There's nothing quite like it in the market. Slightly pricey at the top end, but I think potential is just phenomenal, isn't it?
Absolutely, Hormazd. I mean, I did that review, and
the back seat, the fit and finish, everything just works so well.
So the features, you've got your cooled back seat, of course, only on the base.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's...
Yeah, ride is a bit firm. It's a little hard, but I think, it's a tall vehicle, so they have to stiffen the suspension to counter the roll.
True. Yeah, and Hormazd, another thing we must talk about Kia is, which is, I think, admirable. They've not chased, for example, Maruti saying, let's go into, hatchbacks and small sedans. which they have internationally, but they've steered clear of that and then gone into like almost what would have been called a niche segment, MPVs. I mean, you have the Carens, which is kind of like an MPV. They call it a RV, recreational vehicle, whatever. And then you've got the Carnival also at the higher end, which they are also locally assembling.
Yeah, correct.
Small little offline plant.
I think, you know, any manufacturer coming into India, you know, around 2019, which is when Kia did, they've seen how the market is evolving. No one's going to get into hatchbacks anymore. Hyundai did it 25 years, you know, before in the 90s, because hatchbacks was the only way to enter. So I think in terms of strategy, everyone's following that strategy. You know, of looking at SUVs. But, you know, again, you're right. I think finding a niche like they did with the Carens and now even the Carnival. Carnival, very interesting. They've kind of been quite bold, phased out the old one and come in with one which is significantly more expensive. I mean, you know, it's some 50-60% more, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I think that's done well. But again, I think in terms of product mix, feedback we're getting is that the backseat features aren't enough, you know, for the Indian market. It's an international model. So clearly they can't, for those volumes, you know, tweak the equipment levels beyond a point. So I think that's some feedback that there is. But overall, again, you know, I think you've driven the car. It drives phenomenally well.
It does, Hormazd. I mean, we were all impressed with it. You know, we did that review. I think it was me, Gavin, and Saumil. Everyone really loved the car. It's just, first of all, it's like typically Kia, you know, the finish inside, beautifully done. Switches, tactile feel, operate with sort of common sense. You know, cooled seats, you move forward, heated, move back on the same switch. You don't have to go through some complicated menu. So yeah, it's a nice car. And then at the Bharat Mobility Show, they also showed the high roof version.
Yeah.
You know, which was apparently built in India. So this facelift car has never seen this kind of a version before. The previous gen had it, but the facelift never had it. And in India, it was built, of course, not built as in to be production ready. It was built almost like a one-off, like a concept, just to gauge sort of feedback and things like that. And that had a little bit of an updated, let's say, interior, especially at the rear. You had a larger TV. I'd call it a TV because it was a television-sized screen. You know, a parquet wooden flooring and things like that. So they are trying, like you said, looks like at least to address some of that. You know, remains to be seen if that makes it to production or if some of those features would come onto the regular roof version.
And of course, you know, EVs, they've got the EV6.
That's the other, yes.
Correct. Superb car, but I think, again, it kind of had the rug pulled out from under it with the Ioniq 5, which is just, you know, at that price point, you can't even compete. So, you know, I don't know why Kia didn't look at a CKD or local assembly
like
version.
Ioniq.
Exactly, you know, to get, you know, tax benefits. But again, you know, each one has their own strategies. But I think what perhaps talking about EVs, I think Kia has its own plans. We know the Syros is going to get electrified. So obviously that will give it more volumes. And I think coming this June, so I think that's one of the scoops we can talk about. The Carens is getting a facelift.
Yes.
The facelift will be a substantial facelift from what we hear from people who've seen it. The bonnet is more higher. So frankly, it's become more SUV-ish than MPV-ish. That's what we hear. And it's going to have an EV. With the same kind of powertrain which is there in the Creta EV will be in the Carens EV.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. The Carens facelift is scheduled for April, Hormazd, and 2 months after that apparently will be the EV version.
Right.
And like you said, and interestingly, the EV version, if you think about it, Hormazd, it's actually going to be the first, not the first, I mean, the first sort of mass segment 7-seater EV.
Absolutely.
You know, because it's 7 seats and electric. So there's something unique in there. You know, so far everyone's given you different flavors of EVs. Maybe it's an SUV.
Yeah, we'll have to see how the packaging is, because normally, you know, with the battery and all the ancillaries, the third row can disappear.
Right.
So
the third row is there apparently, but let's see how comfortable it is to sit there.
Exactly.
You know, but apparently it's there. So that's a big one. And from what I hear, apparently the battery size is going to enable a 500 kilometer plus range on the electric version of the Carens. So, yeah, it's really interesting to see how they manage the large battery and seating position. Speaking of EV zones, before that, and I'm going to rewind a bit, is this year will be the EV9 launch. Now, I'm saying this year because I know they launched it last year, right? But apparently it was launched, they announced prices and things like that. Homologation was a problem. So they couldn't deliver any of the cars. And from what I hear is apparently there are 20 odd bookings that they've had, so very low number.
Right.
But they say that once they get the cars delivered, they are expecting, consumers to start coming in and saying, okay, the cars are sort of being sold.
Yeah, well, again, EV9, I think phenomenal car globally, but very, very expensive. I think more a showcase of technology.
Yes.
And, that's a shame, to be honest. I wish Kia had a stronger, smoother kind of launch phase with the EV9. We could have been out there, seen them on the roads, because really it is an outstanding product.
I think you've seen it and driven it.
I've driven it as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
So I think, it's, I think in a way it's a statement of what the group can do on that 800-volt, eGMP architecture. Absolutely phenomenal. That's what the, Ioniq 5 also is. We've loved that car.
Yes.
It's really outstanding. So I think, let's not forget that Hyundai, Kia really have taken a strong lead in electrification. Of course, the Chinese are catching them globally, but I think in India, their technology, it's really worked well in the cars they've launched, the limited cars they've launched, basically EV6, Ioniq 5. But even the Kona, which Hyundai had, was pretty good.
Right.
So I think they share this technology, and I think it's going to be quite exciting, because I think as we see the EVs come, I think one thing we can say is that, whatever EVs they bring, there will be a certain standard, a benchmark of performance, efficiency, and quality that they'll bring.
Absolutely. And Hormazd, I think also, I don't know what you think about this point, but they're probably also using the EV9 as a sort of test of the brand's elasticity at the higher end, because Hyundai have been talking about bringing in the Genesis, their luxury brand. Kia don't have a luxury brand. So are they using, you think, the EV9 test to check in India the pulse of people to pay a crore plus for a Kia?
Absolutely. I think you're right over there, because, I think in India, at the end of the day, the higher you go up the price ladder, more than the product, more than the technology, it's the badge that starts kind of, getting more weightage and having more value.
Right.
And I think that's where luxury brands, the German luxury brands really benefit, because if you see some of their products, they are much smaller, not as well as equipped as these sort of premium cars, premium brands, be it Skoda, Kia, that sort of thing. So clearly, I think it is going to be a test of that. And but I think it'll really appeal to people who want something which has the tech, has the design, and are a bit more evolved, not to be too fussed that, okay, it's not a German luxury badge on it. Yeah.
So probably someone who's already done that, tick mark, okay, I've got my luxury brands now and I'm willing to sort of expand, horizons.
Exactly.
Okay, and Hormazd, let's also move on to next year, because there's another big scoop that we have to break, which is the Seltos, right?
That's right.
New Seltos, and it's not just a facelift I hear.
No, it's a new Seltos, and I think what's important to note is that the Seltos Kia has been a little slow in the life cycle management or pace of change for product with the Seltos range. Because frankly, it is fundamentally a car that was launched in 2019. It received a facelift in between, but nothing too major.
Right.
If you see in relation to what Hyundai has done with the Creta, all new model and then a massive facelift, which is really done well over here. So I think it's really put the Creta a generation ahead of the Seltos in that sense. So it really can't come too soon.
Right.
And I think from what I understand, the new Seltos is going to be much bigger. It's going to be a size, 4.3, might even be 4.5 meters long, maybe even longer. So getting closer to Hector. I would imagine it'll still be a 5-seater, because that's
I was just going to ask you that. Is the length to accommodate?
I think Seltos is a 5-seater SUV brand. I don't think they'll mess with that. They'll have something else for that.
Right.
You can talk about that. Maybe the Sorento could come.
Yeah. Right.
So I think, they're going to kind of hit back with the Seltos as much as possible. Who knows? There could even be a hybrid option. We don't know yet, but we know that Kia is looking at hybrids. They've gone on record to say so. So, there could even in future be an electrified version. So when you're developing an all-new car, from the get-go, you kind of develop it to take multiple powertrains. Now, this is just speculation. I'm just guessing. I don't have any news whether it'll have an EV version or a hybrid version. But I do know that, typically these platforms will be capable of taking multiple powertrains, to take advantage of, the market, whichever direction the demand goes.
And I think with the Creta going electric, it's only logical conclusion to assume that the Seltos would also go electric. They want to do that.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you're absolutely right. And I think it makes sense that the Carens EV will come first because, where it is in the product life cycle stage is when you electrify it. Now, this current Seltos is at the end of its product life cycle. There's no point electrifying it for just, one more year or less than a year. So they'll save that for the new one, and that's when it comes. It's all a question of, how life cycles work. So I think exciting time. I think, Kia, I think it'll be it's one company that's got a lot of headroom above it. If you see, Hyundai's been pretty flat. Even Mahindra's overtaken Hyundai right now. So, despite them bringing so many more models. And obviously, the more volume you have on a high base growth, to have a big jump in growth is a challenge. Yeah. So I think in that sense, so I think it'll be an interesting year for Kia. The next 18 months will be very interesting.
Absolutely. So, Hormazd, I want to go back to also what you said at the start, where these two brands sort of compete ferociously with each other. Here, they seem to be collaborating very interestingly on the electric front, because you've got the Creta EV, which is a 5-seater and an SUV, and sister brand Kia will be offering a 7-seater MPV. So I think they are very smartly getting into a similar price point for electrics, but addressing completely different target audience. So.
No, I think that really is a fantastic strategy of the Hyundai Motor Group.
As a group, yeah.
As a group, what Hyundai and Kia, they said, yes, compete, but try and be in different segments. Don't go absolutely head on.
Exactly.
They can't avoid that in certain segments. As I said, Sonnet, Venue, and, Seltos, Creta. But I think otherwise they've managed to carve their own niche. And absolutely. But, there will be some overlap. You have the Tucson. I don't think a Sorento 7-seater is far away. That could come.
Okay.
But I think they might, be a little bolder and localize it a bit more to get, let's say, at a lower, more affordable price point. They've seen how the XUV 700 has gone. Everyone is looking at that. And now, at a 30 lakh SUV selling in these numbers, obviously everyone's got their eye on it. So I think clearly a Sorento would kind of try and target an XUV 700 as closely as possible. In that sense, be very challenging unless they localize a lot. So, we don't know how that will pan out. But again, I think, MPVs is an area that they will also focus on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And they are planning to take the Carens, or not the Carens brand, but we know that they're doing a bigger Carens to take on the Innova. They know that the Carens currently takes on, the XL6, but they've got Innova in their sights.
I think everyone's tried to take on the Innova. The Carnival tried to take on the Innova. Everyone and the uncles tried to take on the Innova and failed miserably.
Right.
But I think there's
hope for Kia.
There is, I think so. And don't forget, the Innova Krista is going to, I think it'll have a limited life because it's diesel. And, there's, kind of, let's say, a finite end for that.
End point, yeah.
But the high cross is something they could definitely challenge, with, and I'm sure that's something they could look at.
Yeah, and that's coming in 2027.
Yeah, so because, again, it'll be a monocoque, unibody, the Innova Krista, and we've said this before, the body on frames have their own market.
Right.
And nothing can compete with them. Nothing can take anything away. Them. Mahindra enjoys that advantage.
Right.
But I think with monocoques, it becomes a slightly more level playing field for people to compete with dominant brands there.
Correct. So it's more the Innova High Cross that they will be taking on, essentially.
Probably, yeah. Because I don't think the Krista is going to, last beyond 27 is my guess.
Right. And Hormazd, they're also looking at another Toyota that they have in their crosses, and that's the Fortuner. Apparently also in 2020.
Everyone's trying to take on the Fortuner as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so, but again, I think these will all be monocoque-based vehicles. Because I don't think Kia or any manufacturer right now would launch a body-on-frame vehicle. In 2024, 25. It's just crazy. Like no one will launch a diesel right now. No one will launch a brand new body-on-frame vehicle. If you have it, great. Enjoy the advantage while you can. But for someone to invest in doing that, I mean, that bus has gone. So it would be probably a tougher, larger, a bigger SUV. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they have, and I'm sure it'll have some global play as well.
So yeah, Hormazd, I think then very clearly, very exciting 2 years or 18 months, as you said, for Kia coming up. What do you see in terms of their position number 6? Do you think they'll actually move up beyond Toyota?
Yeah, that's right. I think, we've kind of laid out what plans they have. So I think some exciting key models coming in. I mean, we're going to be taking on the Innova head-on, Fortuner head-on. Clearly, it's not going to be easy as well because, you're against some true giants. But, what I like about Kia has been the kind of the underdog. And in a way, I mean, I don't know whether you call a 6th-place guy an underdog. It's still pretty good. They're doing good volumes. Exactly. And if you see how they're such a late entrant, 2019, and, to jump to 6th, I mean, it makes so many of the others look stupid. I mean, Ford had been trying for so long. Look at Honda, look at Nissan. Right. There's a whole list of the other multinationals
who have been in earlier.
And Kia's just, run away from all of them. So obviously, as I said, they've had the huge advantage of being part of the, the Hyundai Motor Group. So I think in that sense, they've leveraged that advantage. I think going ahead, there's going to be competition. I think everyone is kind of, attacking the same segments that Kia is, though they have some
niches.
Some niches. I think Syros is a great niche. No one really come over there. But yeah, I think it's going to be exciting times. And Kia is one company that you can see has growth potential, a lot of growth potential. You can't say that about a lot of the other companies. So I think, yes, the Koreans really know this market. In a way, they've dominated this market. It's a combination of their global experience, their technology, and their absolute nuanced understanding of the Indian consumer. That really is a very powerful combination which Hyundai has leveraged brilliantly, and now Kia is going to be doing or trying to do the same. So that's a wrap on this episode of Deep Drive. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to tune in same time on Saturday. That's at 11 a.m. And so that you don't forget, click on the subscribe button so you stay notified.